Yeah, I think if you want to look at the club, the professional club you're involved with, so if you're at a big club in Qatar, you have to look at the pathway and see where I need to gain more experience from. So if there is a pathway straight into, a lot of the boys now are going straight into the Qatar Stars League first team. A lot of the young defenders are playing and getting an opportunity to play 18. So they don't need to. It'll give them good exposure. It's an improving league. Some of them are playing Champions League, Asian Champions League football. So there's opportunities there. But I think it's individual for the player and the pathway that he wants to take. Some might need time spent outside of the country to develop different attributes and different skills needed. But it's not a one size fits all approach. I don't think you can just label groups of generations of players and just send them places. It needs to be whatever is the best for the individual.
The VAR Show. The one place for your weekly football update.
Hola, very warm welcome to the VAR show, the show which talks about all the various major football leagues in detail. Today we are going to continue the theme of interviews, and we have the Technical Director of Academy of Punjab FC, Mr. Andrew Cooper, with us. So without wasting much time, I would like to first thank Andrew for coming on the show. Thank you and welcome to the show. And I would like to begin by asking you, how are you and what are you doing these days?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. It's obviously a big privilege to be on and speaking to you. At the moment I'm back in the UK. We've been back for a number of months now, obviously due to the pandemic. So yeah, it's been an interesting time globally for football. Obviously, the people's health and the safety of all people, not just in football, outside, is of absolute paramount and priority. So we'll return and continue the work once it's safe to do so. But it's been a time, like yourself have been doing, in terms of webinars and meeting other coaches and people involved in the game like yourself and chatting all things football. So there's been a time to reflect, to look back on what we have done, to meet with some new people and interesting people, and then to prepare, I guess, for the next steps.
Of course, and hope everything gets back to normal and everyone gets back to the field as soon as possible. I wanted to ask you, how difficult is it for you, someone who has been regularly been in touch with football, maybe more so with the on the field activities, to be away from it?
Yeah, I can't begin to tell you. It's so difficult. I mean, I remember the period at Aspire in Qatar when we would do up to 250 sessions a season out on the grass, which is 7 or 8 sessions a week, plus international travel and tournaments, so plus games on top of that. So you're looking at a massive packed schedule, a lot of time on the grass, not a lot of time on the computers, although it's become an more important part of player and coach development. So for this now to become the norm, to be spending days on end either watching games back, watching previous training sessions, working with coaches online, completing courses. I'm undertaking a professional diploma in leadership. So all these type of small things have just meant so much time spent on a laptop and not the grass, which it's difficult. That's what you're used to. That's where it's our bread and butter, really. It's our art. It's where we get a thrill from. It's frustrating not to be out, but it's another period that we're going to have to look back on and reflect and then move forward. But it's been difficult.
Of course, and like you mentioned, Aspire in Qatar, where you had worked for almost a decade there, and how is it there? I've heard a lot about it, and you can see the results also, where they won the Asian Cup with all the people coming through the youth ranks. Although there were many controversies regarding them getting players from outside, that's a different thing. But how is the general infrastructure, and how is the working mentality? Like you mentioned, you had almost around 250 sessions a year, and that's quite a lot.
Yeah, I joined in 2007. I left in 2017 to join Leeds United in the UK, and it was just the most phenomenal experience, really. I worked under 3 different technical directors, each different styles, so different methods and different ways. So it's just an absolute sponge to get to be involved in the place and the academy and the structure of the country. But there was a huge investment. I was involved right from the start in terms of bringing the younger players through, identifying younger talent to join. So away from the controversy in terms of players coming in, a lot of the boys that we had were born in Qatar, were then trained throughout the period through the FIFA rules. They have to be in the country so long. They're already born there. They have to be within the football system and education system so long. We had a full-time school on site, plus world-leading facilities and sports science support. So we were really able to drive a program of a culture of excellence. We would train at 7 times a week. We would have a games program that included bringing teams over from all around the world, the top teams, top youth teams. And we also had youth coaches that had worked at the elite level from all different countries, which created a melting pot of ideas and backgrounds and training methods. So it was a really positive, vibrant place to kind of be into to work. And I mean, the day I started in 2007, Felix Sanchez, who was the under 14s, 15s coach, he took that team right through under 19s AFC, and then on under 20s World Cup, and then obviously onto the national team with a lot of the same players, and most of the highest percentage are all graduates from the academy. And I think that's probably the biggest testament to any youth program, is the legacy that you leave behind. You know, you're working with coaches who are working with under 9s and 10s. It's sometimes hard for them to see what's going to happen when the boys are 18, 19s. They don't get that chance. They have to wait a long time to see whether your methods or the way you're working is right. But at Aspire, we were really able to see that. And now looking back, and you know, it gives a great sense of satisfaction for a lot of the staff. You know, a lot of people were involved in the age groups. To look back and see so many of them have gone on to both professional football, regular, you know, in a lot of the first teams in the Qatar Stars League, and a lot of international players. Most of the squad are graduates from the academy now.
Of course, like, I wanted to ask you, like, you know, like how you have in the Asian market, you have a lot of countries investing a lot in football, and you know, like you have coaches coming on from abroad who are well recognized there. They come and set up, and they maybe like yourself, like how you know brought about a change in an entire generation of players, you know, like from the youth to the senior side with Qatar. Why, like in your opinion, why don't we see much more of these people playing in Europe? Is it due to the quality of the players, or is it just some other reason?
Yeah, I think right from the outset that was always going to be a stumbling block. When the Aspire boys graduate, there was at 17, there was always going to be a difficulty of what happened next. We didn't want to lose them. The idea is that they would then go into to play for the national youth teams, but go back to the professional club, because technically it's the national academy. And it was kind of recognised that we would need to be a platform in place for them to move on to afterwards. And what they did with success is the better players were tied up to clubs, Kassupen in Belgium, Culture Leonesa in Spain, and other clubs that Aspire had a partnership, obviously, with Delhi Dynamos as well, to establish a pathway for players to go and play overseas as well. I think culturally it's different. It's a lot of boys have spent, a lot of the youth is boys there now from 17 and 18, 19, embedded in European football. Maybe people don't know about them, but waiting for the opportunity and working hard in clubs that are supported by Qatar. But ultimately, it's difficult to come from a country where life is so good and you're well looked after, and you've been in an incredible system for maybe 7 or 8 years, and you have to start at the bottom, and you have to graft, and you have to work, and you have to maybe life's culture, weather, everything's a lot different. And this is the barriers a lot of the boys, you know, need to get through. If you look at Akram Afif, who's obviously won the award for the leading player in Asia, he spent time over in Spain at multiple clubs, honing his craft, and didn't find it easy, I'm sure, at times. But you know, when you look back at his success by coming back and playing in Qatar, it obviously proved dividend. But I think a lot of the boys do stay at home. I was predominantly involved with the 1999 age group, and a lot of them have gone over to have 3 or 4 seasons in Europe with clubs up until around the age of 20, and they do drift back, and it would be good to see a few more push on and really, because I think you need one through. If you get one through as an icon who's a role model, it can bring on other people as well.
Of course, like, you know, like I wanted to ask, like, what is your opinion? Like, do you think, like, once you graduate, like, from the academy, like you said, like, once they're 17, 18 and they move on to their professional clubs, do you think, like, although it is difficult for them from where they are coming, do you think it will be better for them as a career, as a player development, to go abroad and try their skills?
Yeah, I think if you want to look at the club, the professional club you're involved with, so if you're at a big club in Qatar, you have to look at the pathway and see where I need to gain more experience from. So if there is a pathway straight into, a lot of the boys now are going straight into the Qatar Stars League first team. A lot of the young defenders are playing and getting an opportunity to play 18. So they don't need to. It'll give them good exposure. It's an improving league. Some of them are playing Champions League, Asian Champions League football. So there's opportunities there. But I think it's individual for the player and the pathway that he wants to take. Some might need time spent outside of the country to develop different attributes and different skills needed. But it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. I don't think you can just label groups of generations of players and just send them places. It needs to be whatever is the best for the individual.
Of course, and like since you're involved with them from the starting, like how long did it take for you as a team to maybe establish, like what you wanted to achieve, like with the players?
Yeah, I mean, I took an age group at that time, and it happens all over the world, as you know. I was taking a younger age group, maybe the under 12s, but I was also assisting the under 16s as well and doubling up with the work, which I look back now. I mean, at the time I was banging on the technical director's door, Michael Brown, and saying, the workload, and I'm having to do this and that. But now I have the same situation myself with staff, and I think you really have to. They're actually some of the best years I've had, being an absolute sponge, working under leading coaches. It's harder to work with these age groups, especially with the talented players I have. If you're starting off, so to work under good people at the start of the program was really important. And we had we had some of the best coaches around at the time, so he was able to pick up ideas. But it was driven from the top down. It was driven by the vision and the mission of the academy and the people in charge, who ultimately the royal family in Qatar. But then the technical director Michael, who I've mentioned, who was there in its infancy and brought and drove a culture of where there was all different nationalities. We all had an opportunity to speak. We all had a voice, and we created a family. We created a bond. We were all living away from home with family, with children. So people got on, and we created an environment where it was really good for learning, and that rubbed off onto the players. And it took time to get through, but once we did, we started to see progression. And I think, as we all know in youth football, if it's judged on early results, there was a period where they weren't good, they weren't great. The results, we were having to play teams. We were having teams from Spain, Barcelona, Bayern Munich coming over from Germany, these type of teams, Anderlecht coming over and playing us, and we were having to play them a year older to compete. But we had patience. There was a long-term vision. There was a long-term development plan, and ultimately we were on parity with them, on par in age group, and then in terms of playing style and being able to compete, we were there and thereabouts by the time the program moved forward.
Of course, like I have a very like you said, although you had to play one age group older compared to like what you had, I have seen this or observed this you have all those underage World Cups, like maybe under 16 or whatever World Cup you have like a lot of teams, like maybe I'll just take an example like Haiti, who played in under 16 maybe in 2007 something in Tokyo, in South Korea, and there are a lot of players who are good, and who had played with a lot of in terms of skills maybe on par with who are playing for maybe Germany or Argentina, but they don't go on to make it. Like, what can be like the main reason in your opinion for that?
Yeah, I guess a lot of these type of teams are quite physical, early developed players. You've got through these age groups, 14, 15, 16, you've got, maturation and growth to go through. And a lot of countries pick players on size, and not always technical proficiency and tactical understanding. And that has to be developed and refined over time. And I know it's still prevalent today. You'll notice teams and countries have an identity, and that's how they want to identify their youth players. What it then takes is time, and it takes a pathway. It takes a long-term idea, and it takes opportunity. These boys that'll go back to them islands or other smaller developing countries might not have they might not have the competition. Certainly in Qatar, we didn't have the competition. We were choosing a national team for the under 14s one year of around 280 registered players, of which You were allowed a couple of boys from overseas, expat boys in that league. So you had around 200 to choose a whole national team from. Now, I'm living in Leeds at the moment, and you would have that from, within the small regions of Leeds. We've got more footballers than that playing probably this afternoon or this evening. But what they did with the investment, they were able to create a games program where the boys were challenged to play against some of the best teams and coached. So then they were given the opportunity to develop and support it. And it wasn't always going to be successful in terms of results, but through good education and good people on board, we were able to develop them. And I think a lot of other countries maybe see it difficult to get the infrastructure right, maybe because of resources and a games program that allows the best to play against the best.
Of course, and I wanted to ask you, then after that you moved to Leeds, and you are involved with the youth itself, and how, like you already mentioned, how you can have maybe the amount of people playing in this afternoon, there will be more than how many people you'll have to select the national team from in Qatar.
Yeah.
What is the fundamental difference between the youth, when you go on to implement your ideology in maybe at Leeds to maybe at Aspire? What is the quality of the talents you're dealing with, or what is the difference between them?
Yeah, it was interesting. I definitely picked up that I needed to adapt when I first went there. I first was working with 13 to 16-year-olds right at the start. So society is a lot different here now than when I'd left in 2006, 2007. So I've been 10 years outside the country. Came back with a young family as well. So the boys are a lot different to how I remembered working with. So just to try and get on a level, to get a rapport with the boys and build relationships again with the players was massively important, as well as the staff. So get on the grass as soon as possible and interact with the players and start delivering training sessions. That was vital for me to do. And then other really small things, but actually mean a lot in terms of practice design. So the weather is not great here for a lot of months, and in Qatar it was beautiful for a lot of the months. So interventions in England needed to be short and sharp, because you don't want boys standing around. It sounds really basic, but believe me, when you're out on them pitches in November and December, when I joined, I soon learned that boys you need to be moving. You need to refine your skills and refine your practice design to get the ball moving more, to be able to then get more out and maybe coach more on the go while the ball's still moving live. Whereas maybe in Qatar, because of the language, a lot of the boys at English became proficient in English over time, and we were learning Arabic. So there was a mutual kind of meet in the middle of understanding of football kind of language. But I kind of learned you actually can change, and I needed to just coach on the run, coach as the ball's moving, and change the session designs and some of the practices, because they weren't conducive to that area.
Of course, and you I think you're partly there when Marcelo Bielsa was also there. He's still there, and how is it having him? He's a very he's a very mystic figure, in football. Little bit of the olden age where you still send spies to see those are little bit older. Nowadays you don't do that. How is it working with him?
Yeah, I mean, I was with the under-23s at the time when he signed. So we were brought back from pre-season to pre-season early to start the role, and he came in and obviously wanted to have a huge revolution in terms of everything: playing style, staffing, players, training facilities, the buildings, the dynamics of the day, the groups, the interactions. So we joined their kind of bubble, so to speak, in terms of first team training. They created three groups. I was involved with another coach, Danny Schofield, who's now at Huddersfield Town, to work with one group of players, and it was an amazing experience to be dropped into. To be honest, they had really clear planning and clear ideas, and I think the things that a lot of media outlets have talked about in terms of his preparation. He'd already watched all the games from the season before he'd arrived. Success stories in terms of Klitsch, one of the midfielders who was out on loan the previous season. He even watched all his loan games, so the detail that they'd been to before, to kind of have these preconceived ideas about players and who could fit where, was really interesting and insightful, because when they arrived, they hit the ground running on day one. They knew what they wanted and they knew how to achieve it. And to be kind of on the periphery, I was not involved in direct training of the first team squad. We were doing the 23s, but we had a number of first team players with us, and we were kind of linking to the first team to the program at that time. And it was fascinating to be part of and see completely different coaching session styles he has with players, how he delivers training, the army of kind of staff around him that support and deliver training. The introduction of the sleep pods that came in, and the 3 sessions a day, very different to what I was used to. And I'd been quite happy with my experience in Qatar, working under and with a lot of coaches from different parts of the world. But for I knew he was had a really unique way of doing it. I know a coach who worked under him before at Lille, his previous club, so I was able to try and just get some information and find out. But for sure, the off-pitch things were as interesting. The things you've known about the litter picking and all these type of things that came out when I was back working with the youth teams were just his way. And obviously the first season they weren't quite able to make it, and then this season now, they start with the Premier League, and it's exciting times, and many of the youngsters are coming through and being part of that, and he's put a lot of faith in the youngsters that the academy's producing, which is really, really pleasing to see.
Of course, I'll ask you one quite a strange question maybe, and someone like Marcelo Bielsa, he's the role model of many successful coaches right now. You take like Guardiola. Were you as a staff, like all the staff, were you intimidated when he had come, because you had to prove yourself to him?
Yeah, I think the club was going. It was a real exciting time when he first came in, and the academy and the first team are really close. They were in the same building. We were well supported by the first team. The academy manager's got a great relationship. The players, it's a continuation line that the players go through and make debuts. So it definitely wasn't like an us and them environment where he came in and closed. So we were able to watch and observe his methods. And I think it was real exciting for people to see what he would do, and to see if some of the mystery and some of the things that the rumours we'd heard that he does at other clubs, and all these strange things that you read about in all the books and the other that people have written about him, how true it was. And a lot of it is unique. A lot of it I hadn't personally seen before, the level of detail he goes into. But it's his way and it's his method, and everybody has a different way, and it doesn't mean that nobody had to prove anything. He came in and he has his clear vision of how he's going to play and how he's going to set up his teams, and he's open to obviously observe and watch. He watches the younger teams play, and he interacts with staff, and as well as bringing his own staff in as well, who then embed themselves within the club. So it was a fascinating introduction to it. I don't think a first team manager has caused such an amount of publicity as obviously when he came, and it was an exciting time for the club.
Of course, I wanted to ask you, was he is he someone who would like to get involved in how the full club is running, including the youth in his ways of how he sees football, or how he wants everyone to play, or is it he leaves it on to maybe the youth side what they want to do? How does he work?
Yeah, it's a good question. The fundamental change has been that in my time there, and it's still happening now, the under 23s, which is as effectively the reserve team, they moved up to join the first team training. So they mirror the first team. They mirror what the first team do in terms of training times and schedule. Obviously, they've got their own games program pre-COVID, what goes on, but they would work as close to an old-fashioned reserve team as it can. So they provide training opportunities for younger players to train with the first team and then see how and challenge up against him 11v11 for these traditional games that we know he's famous for playing in training. The 18s downwards didn't have in terms of an overall it wasn't instructed that he's changed the program. The coaching program is still there, run by the head of coaching and the academy director. But what has definitely happened, there's been an influence. There's been an influence of his practice design, of his way of his coaches delivering sessions, some small things in terms of how he designs his sessions that people have definitely been influenced from. And obviously, when you've got some of the high pressing and some of the attributes he likes from the first team players, it's quite easy for us to use the technology that the club has to to show the youth players this is what he's after from his centre back. This is what he's looking for from his midfielders. This is where we are now. We don't know where the club will be when some of these maybe under 15s are going to get to that stage, but it definitely gives them a big, broader range of skills. So looking at the anticipation of a centre back to try and pinch the ball in front of a striker, for example, is something that they work meticulously on, and they work on different techniques of doing it, and that filtered down. So there was definitely a buzz and a positivity around the place in terms of affecting coaches in a positive way.
Of course, and now you're with Punjab, and you have been there for a while. How is it there? Like, how is the infrastructure and everything there?
Yeah, I mean, it's been really obviously frustrating that we've had to that a lot of the COVID situation, we've had to return home. Ultimately, we've got a great project up and coming, which I'm sure people are keen and will hear about shortly, and it'll be great to, as I said to you off air, be good to come back and kind of discuss more about the programme and more about the project, about what's happening. But the introduction to India, I first arrived last November, and establishing a club and a philosophy and a coaching programme is absolutely really exciting in an area where, if you look at what I said about Qatar, the population and the small talent pool here, it's vast. We know that there's other competing sports, but the football I've seen, and I've been fortunate enough to travel around and basically just get a flavour of what the country's like in terms of football in the Punjab, but also in Goa and other areas of the country that I've visited, to watch games, to understand the leagues, to understand the structure of how it works with the system in terms of youth, and obviously to try and make a difference and provide a platform of players to play at a higher level in the future. I think it's been so far a fascinating insight, a really unique insight into what's going on here. You can see, like we've discussed, the infrastructure and the investments increasing. No doubt there's plenty of potential in players that I've seen. We've seen a lot of good future players, and again, it's down to what we discussed earlier in terms of the pathway and the right environment, and that might not be what worked at other clubs. Not just me, but the staff that are there as well. They've all come with different backgrounds and different ideas and different experiences, and mine, for example, are at Leeds and Qatar, and before that in Australia, and then back in England. It doesn't mean that same method works everywhere. You have to adapt to the culture. You have to adapt to learn to get to know the people, to get to know the environment, how things work, and then put your plans and mold your plans around the landscape. It's not a one size shop for everyone that you just turn up and put your franchise, or however you'd like to label it, into an area. You need to assess the situation. That's what we spent time doing, and it's been a real privilege to watch some of the games in the I League and the ISL, as well as the junior games as well.
Of course, and since you're involved with the youth, grassroots football is a very, very major aspect that you would be looking at. So, have you examined the grassroots football in Punjab, how it is? If you could tell us a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the future of the game, isn't it? And we know that there are a lot of good initiatives going on with the grassroots, and it's something that, for sure, you just want to see when you're traveling around and you see the kids playing, and you see the kids playing on different areas. You want to give a platform for them to be able to play and to be able to get some structured coaching, to be kids, but to be able to get a platform and a pathway through. And that's got to be part of any club's vision when they're in the Punjab, for sure, that to get people playing. There's other sports that are really prominent in the area, but to give an opportunity for young people to play. I've been involved in grassroots football when I first started out. I've got a real passion for it. I have a very average non-playing background, so unfortunately when you're given the news that it's not going to be a life in professional football as a player, and I was really, really into the coaching at an early age, and a lot of my early days were spent in grassroots football locally in Hull, and working with different parts of the region. And that became something that I always look back to. I think you need to, when you go into an environment, you need to get your foundations right, and the grassroots program is fundamental for this, and to get people playing, to increase participation, one, for sure, to help local coaches, definitely, and then to promote a pathway through to ultimately be able to represent the region would be a massive achievement. And I think it's something that needs to be looked into and it needs to be explored for sure.
Of course, and staying with the same theme, like you said, India has multiple sports, and maybe football is not the most adored sport across the country, and you have a lot of competitions and very difficult competitions, to be honest. So like how difficult, or what is the talent pool that you're scouting from? Because you are not only scouting, like you may have someone who's coming for the grassroots, who's playing football maybe on Monday and is playing cricket maybe on Tuesday. So like how difficult is it like to convert them to like focus only on football?
Yeah, I think it's difficult in a lot of countries for sure. You've got big, lots of different sports taking the attention away. But as long as if there's boys and girls getting active in sport and playing, and they're spending less time on, in other areas inside on phones, on any other technologies, you're happy for them to be involved and playing. Early specialisation could be a little bit dangerous in getting them into football so young. So you want them to be free to enjoy and experiment, and to go to the different sports clubs, to go to play different sports and find the path. I'm not one to advocate that you start under ridiculously young, like it's kind of a race to the bottom is becoming the new kind of trend. I do like the idea of playing multiple sports. We did it in Aspire as well. Every Monday session was a 6-week block of different sport: basketball, volleyball, handball. And actually what we were able to do was link the handball and the basketball themes to the coaching program that we're doing at the moment. So if we were working on counter-attacking, the basketball coach who came in from the federation for us, he would get his coach to sit back and attack on the break in these basketball sessions. So we were able to manipulate different sports. To get the younger boys did some martial arts, which helped learn how to discipline, but also falling properly and correctly. So I'm an advocate of having different sports and for them to play and for them to find a path, but they won't find a pathway into football and in what we're looking to do unless we have people and the right infrastructure out there to be able to offer football to these areas. And, when I went to go for a visit some games and have a look at some infrastructure there, the people playing on the streets was incredible, and you felt you were in an area that had football culture and was driving football on with local people, and the shirts hanging up everywhere of the teams, the local team as well as international teams. So there's definitely potential out there. I don't think you have to fight against other sports. I think you have to embrace them and work with them.
Of course, and I have the last few questions, and I wanted to ask you, since you're in charge with the academy and you have been involved with that, not everyone who comes in makes it. So how do you prepare them, for a career maybe outside football?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that is really topical, and it's one that is not always done right in a lot of places, and it's something that's really important. A lot of people I know have gone through it. Race through the academy system and all things going well and getting told how good you are and you're the next big thing, and then all of a sudden it's cut to an end, whether that be the coach's decision or injury. So the best way to prepare through education, so a full-time education residential program to support, which is what I've been involved in at the last three clubs. That underpins everything you do. So they have qualifications, they have a pathway. They also would, in terms of it comes down to the ability of the player. If a boy, throughout the program, we'd have assessment periods. So the boys are monitored anyway. The boys are monitored by the coaches every day in training, and feedback's given obviously daily. That's then put into reports over a longer period of time. So they're done at the end of blocks of work, units of work. And then twice a year, they're sat down with the coach for a formal review. If there's a period of time where a boy is struggling or is now kind of not in the right areas where he should be, or he's got areas to improve, then they need to be identified, and then we need to be honest with them and the family. We need to say, these are the areas we want to work on. This is how we're going to work on with him, and this we're going to review it in so many weeks' time. I said it to the coaches, and it's been mentioned to me loads of times. It should never get to a stage where a boy is released where it's a huge shock and it just comes out of the blue to his parents. So there's constant dialogue, and it might be a case that it's not the right environment for him at the time. and you might look at him to join another club. It might be closer to home. It might be a club from a different, in a different division, a different pathway, or he might want to move out and go into further education, or he might want to look for a course. So we'll continue to make a commitment as we have previously to support players on the pathway out. We've said it that the pathway out is almost and probably is as important as the pathway into a club, because when you sign in on that dotted line when you're 11 or 12 and it's all exciting and your pictures are going everywhere, that's a great bit. But when they leave, we need to make sure that we've got a duty of care to the boy and the family. So if a boy is not going to get a professional contract with us, it's not come out the blue. There's been a period over the season where it's identified the areas that he might want to improve on, because ultimately he is an elite sport, and it's competitive. It's highly competitive, especially at these later years, 16, 17, 18, when professional contracts are up for stake. You can't hide away from that, but what you need to be is be honest and be transparent with the boys and their families, and tell them where they are, what they need to do to get there, and be upfront and frank with them from the start. Otherwise, if you're not honest in the initial signing, you're always chasing yourself, and you're always potentially going down a path where you're going to drop a bombshell too late, and you've got to think of the boy's well-being and his future in mind.
Of course, and like I'll ask you my second last question. Like suppose I'm interested in opening an academy in the long run. What are the basic things that I should look after? Or I should ensure that is available so that the academy runs well.
Yeah, number one for me is people. I think getting good people in, people that you have a real work ethic, a culture to try and improve, and have the kids first is absolutely fundamental. They put the boys first above, or boys or girls. Obviously, I'm speaking from predominantly coming back from a men's professional environment, but boys and girls putting them at the forefront of everything you do and their development. So there's a lot of egos in coaching. There's a lot of coaches who are getting their own frustrations of their own career out of in the game, or their own issues. But it's people who you look for who've got a real passion for working with young people, and that might be teachers who love football and already have the education background. You get a lot of good coaches, a lot of prominent coaches, and they've come from teaching backgrounds and not always playing backgrounds. You might get that ex-player who's coming out of the game, or you might get a current player who wants to give something back to the game. So getting good people in, I think getting a structure of development over results. So looking at training, how you train, your training timetable, your training schedule, and giving a wide variety of opportunity. And then really like other fundamental skills, like giving them an opportunity to have the ball, loving the ball and mastering the ball, for me would be right up there. So not long periods of sessions where boys or girls don't have a ball with them. So if you have the facilities to have a ball each for the start of sessions, or ball between two, or multiple balls in training sessions, so they get really used to if you think of South American football or other type of areas where they seem to be brought up with this ball just glued to the feet, and they have really good manipulation of the ball with different parts of the feet and different parts of the body. And they become, it's not a hot potato from that. They want to move it on to somebody else. They want to pass it on. They don't want it. You want them to really love the ball and embrace it. And I think that can be done from an early age by giving them, the smaller footballs to start, and to have 5 or 10 minutes at the start where they're free to practice with no fear of failure, and no fear that the coach is going to come down on them and tell them this isn't right, this isn't what I'm after. The young kids, let them play, let them be free. But your training program, it gives them that structure that they are learning.
Of course, and on that note, I'll ask you one final question. Since you have had so much experience across the world, multiple countries, different cultures, and if you had to, give a piece of advice to a young coach who's just starting out, what advice would you give that coach?
Yeah, I would take any opportunity you can to get on the grass. So whether that be multiple age groups, doubling up, assisting. You might be a head coach with an under-9s, and you think that assisting an under-16s is maybe not for you, but take the opportunity to learn of other people, get on the grass as much as you can, and learn from other people, but learn from putting yourself in situations where you can deliver lots of sessions. You get feedback from people. You give yourself your feedback, and ultimately try to drive your progress that way. Take on different roles within a club. Look at how you maybe can use analysis to, whether that be just filming training sessions. It might be difficult from the areas you're from, but can you get a sense to reflect and look back at your own work? But I would, the greatest opportunity I got to do is to travel, to work outside and put myself in an environment where it was elite, it was tough, but it was an environment that you soon learnt a lot from. Looking back for younger coaches coming through now, it would be to maximise the opportunity that you've got to work with different age groups in different environments, different conditions and different levels. You know, grassroots football, opportunity to assist with a higher level of football in amateur football or even a senior football, just to get that experience and that feeling, and to experiment more, to not go by what the coaching books or what the internet or what things say, to develop your own ideas, to come up with your own things, try them, fail, tweak them, try again, not go by what the latest manual or paying X amount of money onto a website says. You might get good advice and good ideas, but ultimately we've been at a period now where there's a lot of things being floated around the internet, but you'll get judged when you're on the grass and it really hits the fan when the ball starts rolling. That's when you'll judge what type of a coach you are, not how you're putting sessions together on the laptop or on the pen and paper during these times. So for any young coach, it'd be just to get out there as much as you can and put yourself in a position where you might actually fail, or you might have to receive some feedback from other people.
Definitely. And like on that note, Andrew, thank you so much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best with Punjab, and I hope you can achieve your goals that you have set out along with your team. And thank you once again for coming. Hope we can talk again soon. Take care, stay safe. Bye.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you.